Hello, this is Anna Delaney with Information Security Media Group. Welcome to this webinar discussion on evolution to SD-WAN 3.0. Before we begin, very briefly, let me tell you a bit about ISMG. We are a global education and intelligence firm, and you may know us best by our 30+ international media sites. Just a bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions for our speakers during the course of this session, please submit them via the chat window on your screen. And if anyone should experience any technical issues while viewing today's webinar, please email webinars@ismg.io. And now about today's sponsor. A part of the Tata Group, Tata Communications is a global digital ecosystem enabler, powering today's fast-growing digital economy in more than 190 countries and territories. And about our speakers, Brian Washburn, Research Director, Service Provider Enterprise and Wholesale at Omdia Consulting. Brian works in the service provider, enterprise and wholesale group, supporting its enterprise networks and wholesale workspace services and digital enterprise services practices. Brian has covered communications and networking services for nearly 30 years and has been with Omdia for 3 years. Sri Narasimhan, Head of Strategic Products Group at Tata Communications, is responsible for leading a team of strategic sales specialists to provide consultancy and capture customers' business needs and look at potential solutions to enable them on their digital transformation journey. So just an overview of today's agenda. In this webinar, we'll discuss the rapidly growing SD-WAN market, projected to expand over 27% annually through 2032, with significant adoption in Asia Pacific, EMEA, and the US as organizations seek enhanced network flexibility, security, and efficiency. So we'll examine the latest trends, adoption strategies, and operational challenges. And from my perspective, the need for agile and secure network infrastructure has never been more important than it is in today's threat landscape. With cyber risks constantly on the rise, SD-WAN 3.0 offers a strong foundation that helps organizations build resilience and flexibility right into their networks, a crucial advantage in staying ahead of increasingly sophisticated threats. So key takeaways include insights into limitations of current SD-WAN implementations, enhancements in SD-WAN 3.0 for improved performance, security, and scalability, and practical guidance for optimizing network transformation. So with the introduction done, it's time to start our discussion. Handing over to Brian, who'll be sharing insights from his recent research on the evolution to SD-WAN 3.0. Great to see you, Brian.
Thank you, Anna, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And Omdia has many different areas of focus. I represent part of the business that covers network transformation research. As part of that, we regularly speak with enterprise executives and also conduct regular quantitative surveys. And based on that, we come to some of the conclusions this year of uptake of some of these critical services that are adopted by enterprises, that for cloud and multi-cloud connect, large enterprise on a global basis have adopted these technologies fairly ubiquitously, and they're generally happy overall with the results. For SD-WAN and SASE, for significant deployments, we see we've now hit the 50% threshold. And again, most of the adopters are overall satisfied with the results, though we've seen some dissatisfaction start to creep up in the most recent surveys we've done. After that, we see lower rates of adoption for network as a service, where there's general satisfaction with the technology, and then for virtual network functions and WAN internet migration, where these technologies tend to have some more challenges that enterprises need to face, and therefore levels of satisfaction can be a bit more shaky compared to other areas. But the overall takeaway is that these network transformation technologies are widely adopted by enterprises and used as tools in the toolkit to advance their overall digital strategy.
Your research shows that adoption rates for SD-WAN initiatives, including WAN internet migration, are high among large enterprises. However, satisfaction levels, as you said, vary as expectations evolve. Sri, I'd love your perspective on this. Are you seeing similar trends? And what strategies have proven most effective in closing these satisfaction gaps?
Yeah, sure. We are seeing the similar trend. Customers have largely adopted internet and SD-WAN solutions over the past many years. But when they come to the end of the contract, they're still not fully happy with what they've received as part of their services. The best way to address this that we've seen with talking to our customers is to sort of set clear expectations on what they're expecting from this transformation. What are the business objectives that they want to achieve by means of doing this or by means of migrating to an SD-WAN solution? And are all the key stakeholders aware of the benefits that are going to be received as part of this transformation? Are they aware of the performance gaps that need to be fixed? I think at the start of all of these digital transformation journeys, if these clear expectations and objectives are set, that's probably the best way that we've seen at plugging these gaps.
Thank you, Shri. That actually is a great lead-in to some of the things that we want to double-click on SD-WAN. And that is that historically, SD-WAN started just about a decade ago as a technology that was almost a straight router replacement. It was supposed to do some things more elegantly, but mostly it was about a cost play to try and reduce some of the services costs and equipment costs. Today, SD-WAN has become something much larger and more complex. The expectations are higher. That is that this SD-WAN platform that's supposed to replace the router now is supposed to be a universal service platform that handles cloud hosting and cloud connectivity, can be managed through a cloud-based centralized network capability. It offers security and analytics, potentially AI ops, and even remote working and hybrid working support.
So Brian highlighted some of the challenges there. We'd love to hear from you and about your challenges. So what is your biggest challenge with your current SD-WAN solution? Insufficient multi-cloud hybrid environment support, lack of improvement in application performance, user experience, lack of integrated security capabilities, or lack of visibility into performance metrics? We'll give you a few moments to answer. Okay, back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Anna. Now, double-clicking on what we see for SD-WAN's capabilities over time. So we've gone from router to a more complicated universal service platform, but we began with what we'd call SD-WAN 1.0, which was a capability that improved upon the router with centralized management, with the ability to attach more types of network ports, and also provide support for asymmetric multiple connections. It also could handle granular applications policies. Let's go to the next section. Then we evolved to SD-WAN 2.0, which you could almost describe as feature packs that are built on top of the original platform. That is this analytics and automation, security features, new types of access, including fixed broadband or fixed wireless failover, the ability to reach into the LAN for Wi-Fi and LAN management, hybrid ways of work support, and the support for cloud and universal virtual instances. And then finally, we're now proceeding to what I describe as the SASE and SSE goals. This is getting us toward the track to SD-WAN 3.0, which we'll get into a little later. But this is embedding security alongside SD-WAN in the network. What that means is capabilities that are hosted both in the cloud and in the network, such as protecting devices with zero trust network access, or secure web gateway, firewall as a service, and so forth. But the overall takeaway here is that we started with a platform that did some relatively simple things, and then built on top of that with ever greater layers of sophistication. And each of those layers is sitting on top of the previous iterations of technology. So what we've built is a very complex platform indeed. And to give a quick preview of what we believe SD-WAN 3.0 to be, we need to simplify and create a platform that can pull all of these pieces together and unite it with other pieces of the network. So why is this significant? We've seen this SD-WAN evolution toward increasing complexity be a big challenge for enterprises, and it probably has been for your enterprise as well. If it hasn't so far, it probably will be. And we find historically, as well as with our most recent large enterprise global surveys, that those enterprises that choose a large telco as the lead partner and then use that lead partner to help to design, configure, assess the deployment and help with installation end up with a better outcome, with higher satisfaction. That we've historically always seen that gap between those that choose to work with a partner for that design installation phase versus those that choose to design, assess, and build their own SD-WAN, even if they use partners for other stages in that managed services umbrella. That, of course, is, again, better off than those few enterprises that decide that they can design, build, and operate everything in-house. We see consistently that that produces worse outcomes for the enterprise. So the takeaway here is that when we look at the previous slides where SD-WAN continues to evolve and become more complex, it isn't just about that initial assessment and deployment and configuration, but there's a need for the enterprise to go back and look at their SD-WAN as it is today, because that platform continues to evolve in fundamental ways that insist on your enterprise going back to look at the current implementation and see if it needs to be optimized for the new capabilities that the platform now has. And the reason to do this reassessment on a regular basis is starkly portrayed here. That is, historically, we've seen when something goes wrong with the SD-WAN deployment, the most common choice for enterprises, if they're having an unsatisfactory experience, is that they're going to stay with the course. They're going to stick with their partner and continue to work on the configuration until they get it right. Well, we find that in this year, that has now changed. That is, fewer and fewer enterprises are willing to stay the course and work with the partner until the issues are resolved. We see that this year, there's a lack of patience for service problems, and that more enterprises are now first looking at saying, let's see if we need to swap partners or potentially swap platforms. Let's change everything up in order to see if that will provide us with a better result. And because of that, what we believe is important, again, is that reassessment on a regular basis to make sure that the existing platform and partners are still providing the most optimized build for the enterprise in SD-WAN and throughout the rest of the network.
Brian, sorry to interrupt your flow, but your findings indicate that many dissatisfied SD-WAN users are willing to switch providers to achieve better results. Again, I'd love Shree's perspective. What are the main reasons clients make this switch?
Yeah, I mean, I think Brian referred to one of those, which is regular assessments of what has been deployed. I think a lot of service providers today, once they've deployed an SD-WAN for a customer, they sort of switch off and move on to other projects. But what customers are essentially looking for is continuous improvements, continuous assessment and improvements in what has been deployed, because what you've deployed 1 year ago may not be relevant the next year because of customers changing environment, changing landscape, applications moving to the cloud. So they don't see that from their service providers, regular assessment, continuous improvements, and also no desire to bring in some innovation to the existing services or any new service that has come about for customers to bring that to service providers to bring that to their customers. They don't see that today. So that's these are the three main challenges that I see service providers usually present to their customers.
That's very clear. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Anna. And so let's say your enterprise now decides that it's time to reassess what the existing SD-WAN configuration looks like. Where to begin with this? Well, we believe these are the top 5 considerations that your enterprise should have a look at if you look toward doing a reassessment. In no particular order, I'll start with looking at how long ago the SD-WAN was originally installed or last reviewed, because there's going to be a more drastic review necessary if the last time the SD-WAN configuration was thoroughly looked at was, say, 6 years ago versus if it was 2 years ago. But it is relevant to understand how much of a leap is ahead to try and modernize both the SD-WAN deployment and the network that it sits on to have everything work together in an orchestrated, well-configured way. Next, it's a question of how do you conduct the evaluation? What sort of partners do you bring in? And yes, we heavily recommend bringing in a partner that can provide an impartial view of what's happening in the network, both potentially related to the existing SD-WAN configuration and potentially also some outside points of view to understand what may be the most optimal way forward for the business. And then after that, we see that there's a lot of SD-WAN creep that most large enterprises like yours probably has 2, 3, 4 SD-WAN or SD-enabled platforms in its network. Is there a chance to retire or merge some of those platforms and functionality and thereby make the business more efficient? What SD-WAN tasks need to be handled in-house, which should be offloaded. Managed services partners can handle all sorts of different tasks, and some of those may be not strategic to your own business to handle in-house. And then finally, SASE is looming. Network and security embedded in the network and cloud are a necessary combination. So deciding on a trajectory for your SASE future is another fundamental part of reviewing what the current SD-WAN configuration looks like and where to take it.
Thanks, Brian. So we have another poll. We'd love to hear from you. What skills or manageability challenges do you face with SD-WAN today? Limited in-house expertise for configuration and optimization, difficulty monitoring and managing distributed networks, lack of automation to reduce manual processes, or complex multi-vendor management and support? Back to you, Brian, then.
Thank you, Anna. So getting toward SD-WAN 3.0, what we see here is that SD-WAN is about more than just SD-WAN. It's also about the networks that it rides on and the other network transformation services that work in concert with the SD-WAN capability. And that's reflected here, where we see that there's a real difference in satisfaction almost across the board for those enterprises that choose to consolidate their network on a few key partners and work with a telco lead on those consolidated networks. So either one primary partner or one primary partner with a few adjuncts, but limiting the number of network suppliers to have a more cohesive whole. The experience is very different for those enterprises that choose to have a more decentralized approach and use any partner for their purchasing. That way, you end up with both lower satisfaction on the SD-WAN platform that rides on the space, but also lower satisfaction for several other services that your enterprise may be using, because the entire estate becomes more complex to manage, more difficult to maintain. So what is SD-WAN 3.0? Well, we've been leading up to that, and what we believe this platform is fully unified, simplified, and by unified, we mean that it pulls together not just these SASE and SD-WAN 1.0 and 2.0 capabilities, but pulls in the capabilities of the network to unite with the SD-WAN platform. That resolves in things such as real-time observability, in being able to have more sophisticated, more varied security strategies. It allows for the SD-WAN platform to control, say, the network in order to provide the right sorts of service level agreements or service level performance for your applications on a more dynamic basis. It unites the physical and virtual networks in one cohesive whole, and then is able even to do things like closed loop responses for troubleshooting and for responding to issues inside the network. And so finally, switching from satisfaction to value. When we talk to enterprises about the SD-WAN deployments and how much value they generate for the business, we see that there are some commonalities among those enterprises that consider themselves most successful with their SD-WAN deployment. And those things, those commonalities tend to be that they've partnered with a large telco that's capable both of using the network and the SD-WAN deployment and other network transformation services and uniting all of that as a more cohesive fabric. They've consolidated network partners so that they're working with a large telco or a few key partners instead of many providers. They're using an off-the-shelf platform with which they go to market with their partner rather than something proprietary and oddly cobbled together. They've consolidated internally responsibility for their one or several SD-WAN platforms under one IT department. And then they've done some purposeful things in terms of where they use management capabilities like troubleshooting and alarm monitoring, where they outsource to a partner, and also where they apply things like network as a service and virtual network functions. They are more disciplined in terms of where they require those services, and they pinpoint the problems and use point solutions to solve them. So our overall key takeaway, if your enterprise is looking to review the way it's gone to market with its SD-WAN, looking to optimize its current build, we recommend to choose an expert partner to set a vision and goals for what you want to take your SD-WAN into for the future, and then to match the tools that you're going to use beyond SD-WAN to your overall network transformation requirement.
Okay, so Brian has brought up a few key trends that organizations are taking. What about you? What are your plans to move towards SASE? Are you actively researching options but no set timelines, planning a gradual adoption with SD-WAN as the first step, not considering SASE adoption at this time, or already deployed SD-WAN SASE? Excellent. Well, Shri, I'd love to hand it over to you now and hear your perspective on some of the themes Brian has raised, but also what are the trends you're observing in this space?
Sure, thanks, Anna. So essentially, at the beginning of the webinar, we spoke about how setting expectations and objectives is very important to start the transformation. And one of the best ways to do that is to do a proper network assessment. Some of the best practices that this network assessment does or delivers is you evaluate performances, right? Network performances, where is the gaps in the existing network performance? Where are the issues actually coming from, right? The end users generally complain of an issue, but when you actually get into the details, the issue could be coming in from the network itself or from the SD-WAN overlay, or it could be based on where your applications are hosted. Is it in the data centers, in the cloud? Is the cloud in a different country? So those are different areas, details that we can get into during an assessment. When we do all of this, the most important thing is to align the network needs with the business goals of the company, right? What is the organization's overall objective? Is it to focus more on innovation, become more agile, which means reduce operational overheads? Is it increasing time to market for their products and therefore increasing revenue? Is there a short-term goal and a long-term goal to that? Therefore, to support all of this is the organization's objective to become more cloud first and internet first as a network strategy and a cloud strategy. What is critical but not core to the business? Can it be outsourced as a managed service? I think Brian was referring to this earlier. Things that are critical to your environment, like a network, is critical, but doesn't necessarily need to be managed in-house. It can be outsourced to the experts like us to manage it for you. So these are some of the areas that we look at. But going very strongly along with network is the security and compliance areas as well. These need to be assessed. Are they regularly updated? Are they standardized? Have any security breaches happened in the past 1 to 2 years? Have they been reviewed and corrected? What are the critical and sensitive data applications and how are they protected over the network itself? And any industry-specific compliances, regulatory requirements, HIPAA compliance, PCI DSS. We come from an environment where we are very aware of regulatory requirements and security compliance requirements in different countries. So these are also areas that get assessed. All of this to do at the beginning is very critical before we jump into the actual transformation, because without this, the transformation is just a tick in the box. It is not going to deliver the objectives or the values that customers think that they will get. And to deliver all of these in terms of improved performance, user experience, and enhanced security typically, become the top three objectives, apart from cost savings. Cost savings is a given. It doesn't need to be a special consideration, but improved performance, improved user experience, and enhanced security are the key deliverables that most assessments look to achieve. And so we provide you with all of these assessments, your performance reviews. We do alignment workshops, gap analysis reports, security and audit reports, integration blueprints. All of this deliver the objectives that the company wants to achieve in going through the transformation. So what are the best practices, or how do we approach this assessment? Is to engage key stakeholders right from the beginning, right? And typically while we keep saying network reassessment, it's not just the network team that are the key stakeholders. We need to have discussions with the security team, and more importantly, the applications and the end user team, because the application performance is directly correlating to end user experience, right? Where are your applications hosted? Are you moving from on-prem to the cloud? Which cloud are you going to? Are you going to be in a multi-cloud environment? And therefore, where are they hosted? Where are users based out of? So network team, security team, applications, as well as end users, more also from the business side, become key stakeholders. So the IT side as well as the business side, we tend to engage with them. We then, from an assessment perspective itself, it's not necessarily a manual approach. It uses a lot of automation tools, discovery tools, etc., to get to the performance gaps and network performance issues that I was talking about earlier. And then from a approach itself, it's not a big bang, right? It's a phased migration or phased optimization approach, because there are usually, like I was mentioning earlier, immediate issues that need to be solved, immediate pain points that have to be fixed to get the users a bit more happy, right? Their pain points are immediately resolved. And then we have to look at the medium to longer term goals that the company has as part of its transformation objectives. So we take that in a journey mode, and then look at all the immediate goals, and then look at the medium to long-term goals. And that's very important for the last point, which is to continuously monitor and assess, right? You can't take care of those long-term objectives if you don't continuously assess the performance that you're promised to deliver. And generally on the right side, if you see, these are some of the metrics that we've seen delivered to other customers from an assessment perspective: reduction in latency, increase in network performance, cost reduction, like I said, anyways, but cost reduction while improving performance, while improving the reliability and resiliency of the network itself, and ensuring that all your security vulnerabilities are taken care of. That's where SD-WAN and SSE come together, and SASE becomes all the more important from a network and network security perspective. So from our perspective, Tata Communications, we look at this as part of our managed service framework, and we call it the AXIOM managed service framework, where we do the assessment that we just spoke about. And then the execution is to execute whatever we have to deliver as part of the managed services to the customers, including the migration from the previous technology, the new technology, previous service provider to us, and integrate with your existing applications, integrate with your different office LANs and Wi-Fi and different cloud providers and cloud connectivity solutions, and then operate and manage for the life cycle. But that's the key important area, right? Operating and managing is not just about fixing issues and troubleshooting problems, but also to continuously assess. So in some of our customer contracts, we actually put it in our contract to do a quarterly innovation workshop, for example, or quarterly business reviews. To assess what's going on, where are the issues, and what are the new things that we can bring to the table that might be of more value to the customer during the life cycle itself. And the way we do this, obviously, is we have platforms to address all of these requirements. Tata Communications Experience Platform, or TCX as we call it, is a sort of a single pane of glass portal which customers have access to. And we use that portal ourselves to do discovery and assessment. The delivery itself uses an automation tool, so we are able to deliver faster, templatized delivery. And obviously, service assurance uses a lot of AI-related features to solve problems that are frequently recurring and don't need human intervention, so resolution is much faster. One of the key differentiators that we bring to the table is we use orchestrators, the SD-WAN orchestrators that are hosted on our network. They're not hosted on a third-party cloud or a third-party provider. It's hosted on our own network, the same network to which our customers connect to as well. So this gives a lot of performance improvements, better control for our customers. It's a multi-tenanted instance, but clearly segregated between different customers through firewalls. And so fully secure and compliant architecture. We in fact have banks who are very highly regulated and security sensitive using this in-network orchestrator solution from us. So that's a major innovation that we've brought to the SD-WAN solutions that we have. And at the bottom, you see all the different types of technologies that we support, the different OEMs that we have. All of these are delivered as managed services. We can deliver SD-WAN as a service just on its own, or along with the network and security capabilities. We can do a mix and match of solutions. The SD-WAN can be from one technology and SSE can be from another, so making it best of breed. Or we can do a unified hosted SASE model. Today we support Versa on that, but there are multiple other OEMs that we're going to line up. All the other OEMs are listed there. So these are all the different sort of technology partners that we currently work with, and all of it we deliver as managed services to our end customers.
Jumping in history, Brian, a question for you. Are you seeing CISOs or CIOs asking for comprehensive managed SASE services?
Well, yes, in a word, but I think that some of what Sri has talked about here is the reason why large telcos tend to get the highest marks among all the different types of service provider partners. Because yes, there are those enterprises that are ready for a single platform SASE, but it requires both being organized internally as well as adopting that single platform. And the truth is that a lot of enterprises are not ready for that. Their CISO, their cloud team, their network team may not be aligned. They may have multiple teams handling some overlap functions. So this spectrum shows the reality that some enterprises are ready for that kind of the pinnacle of a hosted single platform SASE solution. Many need to put pieces together, and they're working toward a goal of a more unified and more coordinated solution, but they need help getting there. And this sort of a spectrum of possible solutions is just the sort of thing that meets the requirement for each stage of that kind of evolution.
Interesting. Sure. Over to you, Sri, again.
So moving on to a case study, this is a second largest Japanese bank that we recently migrated last year. They provide a wide range of banking and financial services, not just in Japan, but globally, both to individuals and institutions. The key use case or the key requirement that came out of this was, as a bank, they have their own security policies and compliances. So they were on a legacy network with largely MPLS network, and they had not moved to internet-based network yet. So, but they did have the primary requirement of having to consolidate across multiple different MPLS providers. They had more than 4 at that time. They wanted to consolidate across in Asia Pacific to start with. And we were able to do that for them with our global MPLS services that we offer to them. But the more important ask from them was, while staying on MPLS, we actually still want to move to an SD-WAN solution because we want the visibility. We want the application level visibility and a lot more control that without the SD-WAN you wouldn't be able to get. So that was a key ask from them. And a combination of our MPLS and our SD-WAN was a solution that kind of made it to their table, and they were able to see the benefits that we were providing. And our SD-WAN works not only over our network, but also on the second provider that they chose for redundancy's sake. So we were able to deploy our SD-WAN to give them that enhanced visibility and control over the network. And now we're on a journey with them, right? This started about a year or so back, and now we are trying to modernize and optimize other aspects of their network infrastructure, starting with the LAN, which integrates with the SD-WAN today. So we've provided that managed LAN capabilities as well. So there we have an end-to-end visibility, not just to the SD-WAN layer, but also going into the LAN network itself. So we've refreshed that and integrated it with the SD-WAN solution. And now, as they modernize, right, network modernization is still the primary objective for them. Now that they've gotten their MPLS sorted, they've gotten the visibility, we've integrated with their LAN, now they want to move ahead and modernize and move to an internet-based solution where we will provide our ISO Internet WAN services. So one-of-a-kind service where we are providing end-to-end performance SLAs over an internet-based backbone. So where application performance is very important, even over internet, we are able to provide that with a service like ISO Internet WAN. And once we've provided or bring in an internet-based solution, hand in hand comes with security conversation, right? So you cannot talk about internet while ignoring a security conversation. So managed SSE solutions are also being proposed. So we are on a journey with them. So journey towards an SD-WAN 3.0 or journey towards SASE more accurately. And we are able to get to this stage while having performed that assessment at the beginning and looking at those key objectives. And I spoke about, continuous improvement, spoke about this being a phased journey with the customer. And this is exactly the journey we are on with this particular customer, starting with consolidating the MPLS, providing the SD-WAN for visibility, integrating with the LAN, then bringing in internet-based solutions along with its security solutions as well. So this is the journey that we've been on this with this customer. Some of these are not done yet, and we will be doing that in time to come. But overall, what is it that we have delivered to them as a benefit? While staying on MPLS, we've been able to deliver 30% decrease in their WAN cost, is because over time the costs have reduced. So we were able to deliver cost savings, which is a given. But more importantly, the increase in visibility on traffic patterns and trends, which is what they wanted. But while having reduced the costs, we were also able to increase the bandwidth, so more bang for the buck, right? So you get more bandwidth while paying less for it. And not only all of these, this is sort of what you expect, but one of the key differentiators is we were able to provide on-site support people, on-site deployment people, specialized technical design authority to ensure that the migration itself or the deployment itself goes very smoothly, but also to the point about continuous assessment and improvement. This technical design authority as a resource will sit at the customer's office throughout the life cycle of the contract and continuously be in touch with all the key stakeholders to do that continuous assessment and improvement over time. And we will bring in the newer solutions or innovative solutions as and when the needs arise. So that's sort of what helped us to meet these objectives of this customer. I'll move on to another case study. So the previous one was a Japanese bank, and this is an American financial institution. It's one of the largest in the world. This was a slightly different sort of a deployment. This was not based on an overall network assessment of their existing portfolio, but more of a specific use case. The use case being a payment issue. They had B2B payment issues between the banks and their business partners. And in digging deeper, so we did an assessment specific to this, not the overall network assessment, but specific to this payment issue. When we did the assessment, we found out that their network was causing an actual problem. Breakage in the network or flaps on the network were actually making payments getting missed. So they were not able to complete those payments because the network was having intermittent issues. So we then detected this problem, and they were on sort of point-to-point kind of solutions. And we kind of said, look, you need an SD-WAN kind of a solution here, because an SD-WAN is more flexible in detecting intermittent issues and accordingly switching the traffic to a more stable network or secondary circuit. So we delivered an MPLS underlay to them, and we delivered a managed ISO SD-WAN service to them. The combination of this, the MPLS ensured that it's a private network, it's a secure network, it's a performant network, and the SD-WAN gave them the visibility on the traffic patterns because of the flapping on the network itself, and they were able to see when the payments were getting missed. But once the template was configured, the SD-WAN ensured that the payment traffic switches over to the secondary link whenever there was a network issue on the primary. The combination of these two helped solve their payment issues 100%, right? There's no more payment issues on those sites where we delivered this. And I should say, this is the first ever time that this large American bank bought this as a managed service from a service provider, and this is from us, obviously. And this was purely because of the assessment that we did to solve a specific issue, not an overall transformation, but solving a specific issue. And we were able to do that for this large bank. And again, now, once we are on the journey with them, there are many other things that we are doing with them. We bought in a digital twin platform, right? So because being a bank, they can't just deploy new services in production. So we've created a digital twin environment for them where they can test all the new features or new bug fixes, etc., in a test environment before deploying it in the production environment. So that was a huge benefit that they saw coming from us. And of course, every bank, just like the earlier one, is also on an internet journey, migrating to cloud, some of the applications to cloud, and therefore they need internet access. So we are proposing our ISO Internet WAN solutions with end-to-end performance SLAs, and therefore hand in hand will be the security discussions also that are being had with this customer. We deployed this specifically in the APAC market right now, and now we're expanding to other markets where similar architecture, similar issues were seen. And other services come into play as well. So as you can see, in the earlier example, it was an overall assessment of their existing environment, what their objectives was to modernize. Here, it was an assessment on a specific issue, specific use case, went in and solved that problem for them, and now we're expanding as part of their overall objectives. So from a benefit perspective, it is essentially what we delivered first time as a managed MPLS with managed SD-WAN. Typically, banks tend to self-manage, but this was the first time that they outsourced this management. The application-aware routing feature of the SD-WAN led to the 100% resolution of payment issues. Of course, we provided a dedicated service desk because banks need, quick response times, etc. So all of that, and because of that, a lot of big reduction in incident tickets, and moving to SD-WAN obviously gives them the visibility, so it's easier to troubleshoot and resolve as well. So a big problem for them from a financial perspective was assessed, identified, and resolved by doing a proper assessment. So this is a slightly different example to the first one.
Shri, at this point, I'd love Brian's viewpoint too. Aside from financial service companies, Brian, what other industries do you see adopting SASE?
Well, the SASE solution and SD-WAN 1.0 and 2.0 that underlie that are pretty much universally applicable. So I think what's interesting with the financial institutions is that these are particularly challenging environments. They're extremely complex. There's a lot of legacy. There's a lot of regulatory compliance that needs to be met. But the requirements for that universal service platform that can handle kind of remote work, embedding in the cloud, provide detailed analytics and so forth, and then also the need to embed security kind of across the network and cloud, that's pretty much universal. So for any enterprise, these are high value adds that they ought to be bringing into the business.
Thank you. Back to you, Shri.
So in summary, right, what do we bring to the table? What's the advantage of working with us? The access to best-in-class technology, apart from our own managed services that delivers a lot of value to our customers. We work with a whole series of technology providers. So we are best placed to assess the customer's environment and decide on which is the best technology to choose and go forward with. So we work with market-leading technology players that I spoke about earlier. We have our own in-house SOAR capabilities, SOAR platforms, using which we achieve about 99% improvement in MTD and MTTD and MTTR from a security services perspective, using our in-house capabilities. An ITSM framework delivering faster with fewer errors. These are all table stakes. But all of this means that we've been in the Gartner's Magic Quadrant for 11 consecutive years now for global network services. That's sort of a testimonial to our capabilities and our customers. We've delivered more than 1,000 projects on WAN, SD-WAN security with a 99.8% first-time right deployments. That's a huge number in any service provider customer environment. And all of this means that 95% of our customers tend to stick with us. They renew with us. Our renewal contracts, renewal rates are very high, 95%. And therefore, net promoter score of 80 is one of the best in the market in this industry. It means, majority of our customers are majorly satisfied and happy with us, right? And we don't just provide off-the-shelf services. We are able to provide bespoke services. We can craft an SASE journey for our customers, tailored to any stage of the organization's maturity. We can do a walk-in takeover of your existing environment, do an assessment of that, and then modernize and migrate to a newer environment. Or we can do a greenfield deployment and meet you at your journey, whichever phase of the journey you are in your digital transformation, meet you there and then take over from there. The idea is to provide a single ownership for all your IT infrastructure landscape, WAN, SD-WAN, security, even managed LAN and Wi-Fi, with a unified dashboard, so you sort of get an end-to-end visibility of all the infrastructure assets, and the capability to integrate and manage all of these solutions across different providers, different technology solutions, security controls across multiple vendors using a single dashboard. So these are all the sort of the different reasons why we have been very successful in this space, and a lot of customers trust us to work with us for their digital transformation journey.
Oh, excellent insight there. Thank you so much, Sri and Brian. We have some audience questions, so if I may, first one is to Brian. What are the most critical SD-WAN challenges that you think service providers should address to improve satisfaction and outcomes for enterprise clients?
Well, that's a good question. It really comes down to where the enterprise itself is in its journey toward SASE. So there are many different possible routes to SASE, again, going from that one ideal of the single platform and everything inside the organization is fully unified between cloud and security and network. But on the other hand, there are many that are somewhere on steps along the way to that journey that may need certain SSE components that they want to add to an existing platform, and then maybe do a review and a workshop and so on and so forth. So what we see is that a service provider can ideally provide this kind of spectrum of platforms and engagements if they can provide the services needed to bring take the enterprise where it currently is and bring it to where it needs to be in the future, and engage with them with their plans in a flexible way. That's, we believe, one of the keys to better outcomes for the enterprise, and that means higher satisfaction and higher value for the enterprise deployment.
Very good. A question for Sri. For those considering a telecom provider for SD-WAN management, what key factors would influence your choice, and what capabilities are most important?
Yeah, the key word there is a telecom provider for SD-WAN management, right? So one of the key factors is the fact that network and SD-WAN sort of go hand in hand. I mean, any system integrator could do an SD-WAN management, but if they're not in full control of the underlying network as well, then you're not in full control of the end user experience. The issue could be with the underlying network, and if you're not managing it, then you're going to tell your customer to go fix it with your network provider. And if you're a global organization, and if you've got multiple network providers across different geographies, and a different provider managing your SD-WAN, that's going to be an even bigger headache. So a key consideration would be to stick with one global network service provider who can provide the underlying network as well as the SD-WAN management, and then the associated security services that go along with it. The ability for a network provider to provide global capabilities, global services, is far more important and far better than non-network providers, if I can call them that. So considering this as a holistic requirement and a holistic solution is a very important factor, as opposed to looking at it as individual solutions.
Very good. Well, I think this next one you can both tackle. So maybe starting with Brian, how do you foresee SD-WAN evolving in organizations over the next few years, especially with the integration of SASE frameworks and enhanced security measures?
Well, overall, I think that mainly it's going to be a measure of continued addition of features that have been already enabled. I think that there's a bit of a lag between the SD-WAN technologies and enterprises adopting kind of the latest and greatest, which requires kind of going back and reviewing some of the other aspects of the network to optimize the build for the latest and greatest features and capabilities. So then when we get to SASE, well, it mainly is going to be a very varied approach between different company perspectives on the basis of where they are today with their existing infrastructure and services. So overall, what I expect to see is a lot of different paths to this goal of SASE, speaking more broadly in terms of embedding security in the network and cloud in order to protect the business as we see greater numbers and more dangerous amounts of cyber attacks out there in the wild.
What about you, Shri? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would echo Brian's comments there. I think the evolution is towards SASE primarily because of the security environment that we are in today, the number of cyber attacks on the network itself. Everybody's used to application attacks, but network attacks are definitely on the rise. So network and security cannot be seen as two separate solutions anymore. We're still seeing a lot of large organizations, especially where network and security are two different departments. So they're not going down the unified SASE solution yet, but that's the evolution to go to a single network and single security solutions, which is essentially a unified SASE framework, a unified SASE solution where network and security go hand in hand. As long as these two remain separate, the objectives will be different, the solutions are different, looked at differently, and you will not have a unified framework. You will not have a journey towards a unified framework. So I think the evolution has to get there to have an end-to-end visibility from a unified SASE solutions to ensure that the network and the network security requirements are taken care of very clearly.
Next question for both of you again. Maybe Shri, you can take this first. It was mentioned that enterprises partnering with telecom providers for SD-WAN typically report better outcomes than those managing it in-house. So what are the key advantages telecom partnerships bring, especially as clients transition to SD-WAN 3.0?
Sure. One of the major advantages that I mentioned earlier is to look at network and the underlay and the overlay together along with security as a unified solution. But the more important thing is some of the advantages we bring to the table is having worked with different companies in different industries. So I spoke about a couple of BFSI case studies. They are the toughest ones to work with, right? A highly security sensitive and regulatory sensitive industry. But imagine the learnings that we can bring from that environment to a different industry, to a manufacturing industry or logistics industry, who are not as regulated as banks are. We also work with highly digital and born in the cloud companies, and they look for innovative, agile solutions. So imagine bringing those kind of solutions to, again, legacy or much larger companies in a different industry. So these are the different kinds of learnings or cross learnings from that we can bring to a customer by virtue of having worked with different environments, different verticals, and different companies with different kinds of challenges. And imagine doing all of that at a global scale and not at a regional or a domestic scale. I think that kind of advantage, it's seen in our solutions as well. That's why we've gone ahead and deployed this hosted unified SASE solution, because we see customers moving towards that requirement, and we are sort of one of the first out of the block to do a hosted SASE solutions. Because we are seeing all of these different requirements coming from customers, we learn from that. We customize our product offerings to our customers, to the markets, and I think the customers will see the benefit of that.
Brian?
Yes, and to expand on Shri's points, I agree with everything that he said. To expand on those points, SD-WAN 3.0, we believe, is this simplification of the platform. And with platform, we mean beyond just SD-WAN and going into the overall network transformation initiative. So in order for SD-WAN 3.0 3.0 to succeed, we're looking at its ability to tap into the network underlay, to work in tandem with cloud connectivity, with dynamic or flexible bandwidth capabilities, to unite it with the move from WAN migration to the internet, to make NFV and physical devices all kind of work under one cohesive mesh, all presented as one whole to the customer. So these sorts of requirements are all things that telcos can do very well because they have the network and they have the SD-WAN capability and the visibility and control for that end-to-end observability, end-to-end management that is going to be required for this kind of future platform concept.
Very good. Well, that's all we have time for now, but just to say to our audience, additional questions can be emailed to webinars@isng.io and someone from Tata Communications will get back to you. But this has been absolutely brilliant, gentlemen, Brian and Sri, very educational, and we appreciate your time. And thank you so much for the informative session today.
Thank you.
I also want to thank all of our attendees for taking time out of your day to attend this webinar. I trust that today's discussion offered valuable insights into the evolving SD-WAN landscape, the potential of SD-WAN 3.0, and strategies for optimizing network transformation to support organizational growth and resilience. And as a thank you for joining, all participants will receive a complimentary copy of Brian's latest white paper, which includes valuable insights and key statistics gathered from a global survey of security practitioners. We hope to see you again soon at one of our events. For Information Security Media Group, I'm Anna Delaney.